There will be jobs that are higher risk than others.
So it is the return to work day across England, at least, as the government encourages those who aren't able to work from home to go back to their offices or wherever they happen to work, building sites, manufacturing companies, those types of things, factories. But a lot of trade unions, of course, have come out and said this is highly irresponsible. So as Brits all across the country clock back into work, Dr. Hilary Jones is here with advice. Hills, is it possible for someone to go back to work today and protect themselves from the coronavirus?
Yes, it is. And there will be jobs that are higher risk than others. The NHS, working on the front line, haven't been able to protect themselves sufficiently, even with PPE. They know that they're running risks. They're probably at the highest extreme of risk. Then we've got people going back working in the outdoors, landscape gardeners, very little risk of transmission in the open air when you're not in contact with other people. Um, there will be other people in shops, in pharmacies, in offices, in retail outlets that hopefully can socially distance from other people. But there is an encouragement to get people back into work in offices where you might not be able to be 2 meters away from somebody else, and you're going to be in that vicinity for uh, 8 hours a day potentially. So I think there is a concern that that people need to be very vigilant. They still need to hand wash frequently. They need hand sanitizers. They need distancing. And I think I can actually support the unions in wanting to make sure that employees come back to a safe environment. And what we've seen from employers in garden centres, for example, they've got wide spaces, they've got one-way corridors in factories. So people are putting a lot of thought into this, but of course it has to be across the board, and that's the concern. We don't want to have more cases in a second peak.
Absolutely. Well, look, let's get to your questions now. Dean Bonney, he has messaged to say, I was in close contact with a family member who died a week ago from the virus. Oh, gosh, sorry, Dean. Dean says he died while I was there. I have self-isolated for a week and still have no symptoms. Do I need to carry on for another 14 days? I don't know what to do.
Right. Well, Dean, I'm sorry for your loss. It's always awful when you lose somebody close to you, and you need to take time to grieve and to deal with that emotionally. I'm glad that you've had no symptoms yourself for 7 days, and since you've self-isolated for that period of time and you've got no symptoms, the guidelines state that you can actually go back to your normal activities. If, however, you're in a household of other people, they will need to keep isolating for a further 7 days, so that in all, other members of the household will be self-isolating for 14 days, which gets them through any incubation period whereby you could have transmitted onwards the virus, even if you'd been without symptoms, to them. And if they go the 14 days, then they can go back to their normal activities, but you can if you've gone your 7 days and you're fine.
Well, Roger Bellamy, he's got into my mind with this question, Dr. Hilary, because I've been meaning to ask you this. He says, has any work been done to see if the air conditioning in planes kills the virus? If not, isn't social distancing irrelevant, since all passengers would be breathing the same recycled air?
This is a really important question. And I heard Michael O'Leary of Ryanair saying yesterday that he's confident that the passengers can take to the air again soon. He's got HEPA filters in the aeroplanes, and people will be wearing masks on his airplanes and having their temperatures checked. But listen, air travel is how this thing started. In the first place, coming out of Wuhan to Italy and then to the UK and around the world, to Australia, New Zealand, to the States. Air travel, that's the quickest way that a virus can become a global pandemic. So I am concerned about the safety of passengers when flights are talked about again. If you think about the filtration system in these planes, they're talking about the HEPA filters, which stands for high efficiency particulate air filtration. Now, the problem here is this, that there's very, very little research that's been done on whether HEPA filters will filter out coronavirus. In theory, they won't. And I'll tell you why. Because the coronavirus is about 0.125 microns in size. 1 micron, by the way, is 1,000th of a millimeter. HEPA filtration will filter out anything above 0.3 microns. So you can see that the coronavirus is a third of the size of the particles that can be filtered out by a HEPA filter. So there's no guarantee that the filtration system in a plane would protect you. Also, you'll be sitting that close. You know how close you are as a passenger on a plane to a person who might be wearing a mask, but is expelling droplets of air, whether they're symptomatic or not, potentially. Temperature checks, well, they're pretty irrelevant, because by the time you've got a temperature, you've had the virus for at least 3 days and could be passing it on. So I'm fearful that if we go back to international flying anytime soon, that's a way to incubate the virus and spread it around. So the answer to the question is, I don't think the filtration systems are adequate necessarily, and we need to have more research and more evidence to show that it could be safe.
And our last question today comes from Virginia Collier.
Hi, Dr. Hilary. I just want to ask, what is the best way to get your immune system stronger?
Okay, well, we need a good immune system all the time, not only when COVID-19 is around, but all the time. And the best way to do it is to lead a healthy lifestyle. So a good, well-balanced, healthy diet with plenty of fresh fruit and vegetables for your antioxidants. You need to have plenty of rest and sleep, because sleep deprivation can reduce your immunity. You need to be as free of stress as you can, difficult at the moment, but you need to relax and keep things in perspective. I think supplementation is quite useful. There's some evidence that vitamin D particularly is important for immunity. And if you've been indoors self-isolating 14 days and out of the natural sunlight where you produce vitamin D, then a vitamin D supplement is useful, and we recommend that anyway every winter. 10 micrograms a day for everybody is not a bad idea. And then vitamin C, and perhaps you've got the other things that might be useful: echinacea, garlic, zinc. They can do no harm if you want to take a supplement. But I think not smoking, not drinking too much, and moderate exercise too, and you're doing about all you can to keep your immunity high.
Brilliant, great advice. Thank you so much, Dr. Hilary. Thank you for your questions. And we're back tomorrow with another edition of Ask Dr. Hilary Coronavirus Explained.